Everyone's doing outstanding. Tuesday, October 28th, 8:20 on this fine morning talk. Really quick about the market, some names I'm looking at, go from there. Apologies for the early rant. I actually will be away for the first hour today, somewhere in there hour. So I'll be around, just not able to do the rant and things as normal. So doing the rant quick. Anyway, take a look at futures. SPY's over 686 here this morning. Slightly in the green, up to about a 10%, been bouncing around somewhat flat. Overnight, Asian markets were in the red. Europe markets kind of mixed this morning. And yeah, it's all about earnings and the Fed now as we kind of move into today and tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the Fed meeting at 2 o'clock, Fed statement 2:30, 2 o'clock, Fed presser at 2:30, and then a slew of earnings. You have Microsoft, Meta, Google. So that'll be obviously trillions of dollars in market cap. So a big day tomorrow. And then the next day we get two more of the Mag 7 names. So big about earnings story continue. The earnings continue to be strong. So some of the reason, I mean, you look at the headlines last week. People trying to rationalize why the markets keep hitting highs because the earnings were great, right? And it's funny. I talked about General Motors and Ford stocks hitting all time highs, like the car companies. Who would have thunk it, right? Back in April, if you read the headline, just thought they're going to get smashed because of the tariffs, and then here they are at all time highs, right? And then you look at the earnings of GM, about 1 point whatever $8 billion a hit because of the tariffs, but then the stock's at highs. So we'll see how this all plays out. Obviously, at some point you have to think there's some impacts with the tariffs, but certainly has been substantially less than what has been hyped. And yes, so now hopefully, as we get the data, there's no huge surprises. The CPI data kind of was a collective sigh of relief. And then tomorrow with the Fed, just I don't, I put on the watch list. I don't know what could really derail this rally. Like, what would be would it be an earnings miss? After the close Wednesday, some all three of those the big names missing. I don't know. To me, the thing that's most important on the earnings tomorrow with these names, the Meta, the Microsoft, and the Google, is the CapEx spend, right? I mean, Google has like a $75 billion CapEx spend. What is going to fuel that Oracle's $500 billion in remaining performance obligation? Like, how are they going to get there if all these companies aren't spending money? So that'll actually probably eclipse or trump the actual earnings data. What is that CapEx spend? And then you'll see some sympathy moves in some of the other names, obviously the Broadcoms, the NVIDIA's, AMD's, Arista Networks, so on and so forth. All right, so that's kind of the overall market. So just quick, I talked about support resistance. It's kind of tough to find support resistance when we're in a blue sky breakout on the SPY, right? We're all-time highs. Market was up 1% yesterday. It's like where's the sellers, right? The sellers have been cleaned out, technically speaking, right? If you have support resistance, it's a battle between buyers and sellers, and a lot of times on the way down, it's a little easier because you have people who have stops in, people who are used to buying areas of pullbacks. So when you see a support hit, a lot of times it's because somebody says, oh, if markets if certain XX stock gets here, I'm going to buy, right? And then on the flip side, you have if XX stock drops to here, I'm going to sell. So that's, it's a history lesson, the charts. When there's no history, it's a lot more difficult to kind of have concise or at least better support resistance lines. So as the market churns up in these levels, maybe there'll be some better support resistance lines. But for now, 678 looks like a key spot. And then yesterday was funny, right? I hate gaps, and the market gapped and held the gains. A little blip of a little tiny little sell for a minute, and then the market's off to the races. So all good stuff. Yields are under 4%. All right, so now just quick on individual names. Gold down 2% again today. I thought there would be some kind of major bounce, right? I thought, especially, I don't know if it was last week or the week before. It's like every headline: gold going to 6,000, gold going to 8,000, gold. And here it is dipping. You would think, wow, if you thought gold was going to 6,000 or 8,000, you would think there'd be a lot more folks buying, right? You would think. Anyway, anyway, needless to say, it's been a bumpy ride since I got my dust calls and GLL calls. So at the same time, gold can go down to 3,700 or 3,600, but it's probably going to continue to be bouncy. So I don't want to be in a spot where I'm trying to manage a position or get shaken out. So I continue to lock some of the calls out on the way up. So I locked some more of the dust 13 calls out for over 100%, lock some of the 14 strikes out for 60%, and I'll just continue to hold those. I'm not going to add any more. I put this on a watch list too. It's kind of frustrating because it's like if I wasn't in the dust calls, they'd be up 150% or 200%. But since I'm in them, the premiums are not going up as much as I thought they would. I'm, sense my sarcasm a little bit, just kind of how it feels like. It's like mind-boggling. Also, I'm looking at the GLL calls. Similar thing yesterday too. So I'm still holding November strikes. I was hoping to close some in for 100% to cover costs. Those haven't moved that up too much. And then I'm like, let me just get the Decembers. because when things really hit, if the poop hits the proverbial fan and gold does really start to really catch some downside, the premium is going to go bonkers. At least I would hope, right? So I don't want to be in a spot where I'm either chasing or what have you, or paying higher prices. So I went and got those December strikes. I put this on the watch list too. It's like, considering I thought there'd be more buyers. Now I thought 3,800, and here it hit 3,901 this morning. I think maybe under 3,800 is a possibility. So, all right, so that's gold, that's dust. I'll continue to look for opportunities to lock some of those strikes and probably the GLL calls if I get a chance at the open, the Novembers, and I'll just hold the Decembers. Individual names. I mean, Reddit finally broke out of its October chop. I mean, it's been a chop fest since the start of October, 211 to 194, and it's been stuck in that range. Finally broke out on Friday. Sure enough, it doesn't into earnings this week, so premiums are elevated on the calls. Tough to play on a risk reward basis. Gapped at 220 yesterday morning. I didn't want to miss a follow through. Added some spec calls to premium build. Gets to 224 and then just fizzles, right? And then once it broke 220, didn't want to be in a spot where the premiums came out of the call, so I locked them out for a small loss. I'll continue to look for opportunities to play some spec calls into earnings on Thursday after the close. Maybe the 290s today. Locks them into cover cost, ride the rest. That would be the play, or at least my playbook on Reddit. And then just take a look. Even that was a 10-minute chart, and this is the daily. And look at the daily. You call this a rounding bottom, a cup and handle. Whatever they want to name this chart, but certainly looks interesting on the upside. That's Reddit. And then Dell, same thing, right? I mean, the stock gap's up 2%. My calls do nothing. So frustrating. And then it kind of flatlined in the morning, was trading around that 161 area for pretty much the entire morning. Didn't want to be in a spot where it broke back under 160 and the premiums came out. Close those calls out. A name I keep talking about, 175 highs in May. With everything that's gone on since May of 2024, the stock still hasn't eclipsed that level. Kind of, again, mind-boggling to me. So don't be surprised if I add some strikes. Maybe I'll get some time, add the 180s for next week. That's Dell. Not much here to add on Serve Robotics, up 3 days in a row. Uptrend looks intact. So hopefully at some point this finds some mojo. Maybe the volatility is over and it can finally start to just melt higher on its own merits. That'd be great. And then PayPal, right? And I don't know when I had the PayPal calls. I'll have to go check. Maybe it was a couple months ago, a month ago, 2 months ago. But it's one of those names that it's just like it's been stuck, especially since COVID. I mean, the stock was like $250, $300. And it's like the future of payment processing. It always has been. And obviously there's a lot more competitive concerns now, but it's been like stuck in the doldrums for the last 2 years or even longer than that. And every time it looks like it wants to break out, even back at the start of October, all the way up to 278 and then fizzled. And then finally this morning, they report great earnings, a beat and raise, and then they announced an OpenAI partnership, right? And I think they're going to be preferred payment option for ChatGPT. To me, this could be like more of less about the financials right now and more of just like finally removing the overhang and saying, hey, this might be the moment that it breaks out of its doldrums. So I start looking at PayPal, and I always kind of look at it as a stock that should be trading a heck of a lot higher than where it is. And I think back when I had the calls over the last couple of months, I'd talk about being, folks talk about being a value stock, and maybe it is, but maybe this is the spark that changes that narrative, that story. So don't be surprised I add some later dated strikes depending what the premiums look like. I mean, I was looking at the 80s. I mean, were they 50 cents at the close? So those are going to be a couple bucks at the open, the weeklies. I might look for November strikes or December. So that's PayPal. Great earnings this morning. NKLR, nice move yesterday. I mean, it's going to be volatile, so it's up 13%, but that's kind of like a drop in the pan, considering its moves over the last 2 weeks or so. There is a conference tomorrow they'll be at. There was some news again this morning. It seems like everything's about nuclear and energy. But to me, it's like people are just going to be, deep diving to find names that could take advantage of this energy situation that's going to loom for a long time. So here's a name that I think at some point is going to get FOMO again. So if it gets us a bid this morning, I might look for some more strikes, higher strikes, inexpensive ones, right? Because it's one of those, it's like I wouldn't call it a hero zero, but it's definitely could be a real big hero if it starts to take off. All right. Anyway, I'll be out of the chat room for the first hour. So I'll be in the chat room, just won't be around as much. Let's have a great day, folks. Rock and roll.